heading into the Flash, it's just like yet another CW show that's struggling.
I'm
And
ready. Spill all of the tea.
so for me, it was a better episode than episode two. I think it had more concrete points that you could like sink your teeth into. But I also was like, Hartley and the Rogues could have been an amazing episode because it's a heist episode, and yet it wasn't. And Hartley's acting really weird. I remember, Michael, I saw your tweet. You were like, why are you doing this to Hartley?
Oh man, I started this episode so happy. I really enjoyed this episode, and on paper it should have worked because I believe the War of Rogues is kind of like a tribute to the one of the Flash storylines of the War of the Rogues, and it's basically we're two teams, the new Rogues versus the old Rogues. It should have worked, but I mean, like, I'm sorry, they could have gotten so many better Rogue lineup than some of the ones we saw, like Goldface, the Hotness, Chillblaine. Pied Piper was fine, but the other one's not so much. And then, like you said, Hartley started acting really bizarrely, and it would have been fine if we hadn't seen him for like 6 years. He was literally in the episode beforehand, learned his lesson, reminded Team Flash why he was an ally. And then this episode, he started like, I want this for my crew, who we don't care about, know nothing about. Like, if he maybe mentioned his boyfriend, who we did like marginally care about, I would have understood that. But like, you know what I mean? But like, why are we supposed to care about a bad guy's crew? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not character driven. And he went on about his crew before, and I mean, I clearly Hartley cares about his crew. Fair play, the villain has heart, great. But I mean, he cared about Team Flash too, and he turned on them. I want more from Hartley, and Hartley has more to give, and I don't want the current writing of the Flash to ruin a great character from season one. So much about this episode I did like I said, the concept, the team working together, and it was nice to see our old pal, the Hotness, and there wasn't one single and I have to say, he was in it for the mission, not the money.
Oh God.
But he's been one of the cornier villains, and I feel like all the work they did in season 8 to make him a more multi-dimensional character was undone in this episode, because he very much felt like one-dimensional again. Yes, he had heart. Yes, he was like, Barry, you got me out of a tight situation, so I'm going to help you and all that jazz. But the fact that he started falling in love with the fiddler over their joint love of 9 Inch Nails in the middle of a huge showdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Okay, wait. Pause. Why does it seem like this episode was all about guest stars?
Because it was.
It kind of was, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they any of them coming back, or is this their like last appearance?
It's kind of set them up to come back, because Barry's like, Team Flash can't do it alone. We have an army of rogues out there that the Red Death is using. I need my own army of rogues. And they're all like, if you need us, call us. So I feel like he will call them at some point. I hope he does. That would be so disappointing if that's the last time we see them.
I know. It was so weird how they put Hartley into this, because I feel like prior to seeing him last episode, the last time we saw him, they had a whole Sleeping Beauty thing where Roderick, I forget the situation was, but Roderick, his boyfriend, was going to die and he was like asleep. And so Hartley needed to save him. And they did have a crew, because they had a crew of thieves. But when they brought him back for this final season, it didn't seem like they were still committing crimes. They were running a club. So if he was like, for my crew, I was like, but y'all are just running a bar. What did they need it for? He's like, my gauntlets are going to be super powered. I already hearing about those gauntlets. I understand it's how he does his thing, but he said it like 4 different times. And I was like, I get it. You need the piece of technology to be able to power up your gloves. But I just feel like they could have made the rogues his people, so that way it made sense for his crew to not really coincide with what Barry wanted to do. I also felt like I didn't like how all of them turned on him. I felt like Jacko, the Hotness, should have stayed on Barry's side, considering the fact that, Reed, I don't know if you remember, but Jacko melted somebody's bones. He killed somebody. The Hotness, yeah. He killed somebody in the episode he was in last season. And he's not in jail. He was working at Jitters. And he also beat a different rap. And I was like, why, out of all people, you should have stayed on Barry's side, because he's the one who kept you out of jail for murder. But he was like, you don't believe it, that you don't trust us. I was like, you killed someone, Hotness. Like, the trust only goes so far. But the same thing happened with Chillblaine too. Chillblaine killed somebody, and Team Flash didn't care. So I just don't know what
and
Team Flash's morality is these days.
and don't get me wrong. Just quickly to recap the plot. Read. Then they knew the new rogues were going to steal something. So Barry needed his own team of rogues to steal something back because they had meta dampeners at the location. So the Flash couldn't speed in and speed out because his powers would be dampened. So we needed a team of meta or a team of bad guys to help him break in. That's where Hartley and the rogues came in. The problem was Barry didn't trust them because they were villains. And I mean, apart from Hartley, who again was acting out of character, none of these people gave him any reason to trust them. Why did Barry feel the need that he had to act like he trusted them? Because he was hard on himself that he didn't trust them. Like, they're literally bad guys who do bad things. Why would you trust them? So when they went off and did their own thing and said, we're going to save the day and steal this machine for you instead, but you can't be part of it, Barry felt guilty because he didn't trust them. And again, bad guys, why would you? So in order to earn their trust, Barry was like, I'm the Flash. And like, why would you tell these villains you're the Flash? You know what I mean? I mean, of course, Hartley knew and Chillblaine knew, that was fine. But Goldface, who when we last saw held all of Central City's PD hostage, threatened to blow people's heads off, and literally almost blew the place up. Why would you tell Goldface you're the Flash? You know what I mean? Because like after this is over, he could use that against you. So I didn't. And then of course the Hotness, the one-dimensional Hotness knew Barry was the Flash because Barry and the Flash have the same coffee order at Jitters.
Like, it must be intricate. It must be an intricate order because that through line just was not there.
It's just like an Americano with 2 sugars.
Yeah, so he's like, immediately that has to be the Flash, has to be. And it's like, okay, Hotness. But I think I wish I could have been able to lean into the ridiculousness of this plot because I mean it truly was. So I mean the piece of technology they need is to create a cosmic treadmill.
Treadmill.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a cosmic treadmill because that's going to send them back in time. And I was trying to just accept that plot for what it was. I know it's a part of the Red Death storyline, so I'm sure they're going to work in some type of backstory there. But this could have been a really fun heist episode with ridiculousness and letting Grant lean into his comedic timing because he's great at that. And instead, it really was Barry's like, I'm supposed to be leading them. I was like, first of all, they don't know that only 2 of them know that you're the Flash. And I don't know why they thought like they truly entertained taking you on this heist. But they did. And then second of all, why were we surprised at the betrayals? Chillblaine betrayed him because apparently he's been working with the benefactor, the person who wants the piece of technology Reed. And I was like, we saw that one coming a mile away. Chillblaine's still mad about the machine being broken and the fact that he can't get Frost back. And weirdly, he told Barry basically that he knows nothing about loss. And I was like, Barry's lost nearly every person that he loves. So
yeah,
he's not
didn't
the
like
person to
that.
say that to. And he wasn't allowed to push back on it. It's just something that Mark got to say. And I was like, no, he has lost people that he loved. I just don't. Oh, whatever. This has been a struggle season, and we're only in episode 3.
What was Iris up to?
Working with Barry and doing absolutely nothing else but that.
It's just,
Cool.
yeah, I love I love the fact that we have her back at the forefront of the show so that they're not separate. But I think we're risking going back into season 4 territory there, where they didn't want to bother with the reporter arc, so just lumped her in with the Team Flash stuff. And like, I love Iris, and she was a great leader of Team Flash, but we did not need her to be the leader of Team Flash for a whole season when she could have been writing stories. So I don't want us to go back there. And then they had this interesting thing where she's afraid that she'll not get to break one more big story before she becomes a mom. And I do appreciate the idea of having the natural conflict in there that you're going to have less time when you become a parent. That was fine, but it feels like it came out of nowhere, and that Iris suddenly has this fear that the life as she knows it will be over when she becomes a parent. And again, that's a great storyline on paper, but why are we only hearing about it now?
But doesn't she know what her future looks like?
She does, and that's the thing that was irritating about that scene. It's Grant and Candace hit it out of the park. It was
Incredible scene, yeah.
It was a very like emotionally driven scene, and it would have worked. if Iris didn't already know what happens in 2049 and know the tidbits of what happened in the roadmap that Barry had made, she knows she's getting 2 Pulitzers. She's clearly not getting 2 Pulitzers in 9 months.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, so the idea that she was like, oh, I become a mom, that's going to become my identity, and I'm not going to have time for my legacy and what I want to give back, the things that I want to work on. Like, I understood that perspective. I didn't understand that perspective in the context of what Iris is supposed to already know, especially when after she vents and Barry reassures her she has time. He then says, remember, you have 2 Pulitzers. I was like, well, why would he remember that and she not remember that? Like, that's just odd.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to challenge the timeline with the whole like we can do whatever we want, because then Iris, or was it Barry or Iris, like maybe 3 Pulitzers, because they know the outline is there, but they want to change it, which is completely contradictory of everything we've learned about the Flash up until this point. You should not mess with the timeline. You should not know what's coming in the future. But I mean, like, we'll roll with it and see where it goes. Yeah, I appreciated the scene because of the performances, but some of the storyline wasn't storylining leading up to that point for me. Yeah, but there's glimpses of greatness in there, just like the episode, but it all didn't come together for me. The ending, however, is
I
probably
heard
the
through the
best part of it.
grapevine that Javicia showed up.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you guys like that?
Amazingness. It's so good to see her. I mean, we knew that she was coming. I didn't think we were going to get the reveal of her alt self. But once we saw the picture of her on the screen, I figured we were gonna get what she looks like as Red Death. And we did, and I cannot wait for this arc to truly kick off and we get to see her act and say more things than I am vengeance.
Yeah.
Is the
Oh,
Red Death like her? I saw a recap about like her showing up and I tried to read it and understand, but naturally I did not. Is she like, is the Red Death Batwoman? Is that a
um,
dumb question?
no, it's not. I feel like it's supposed to be. We don't know. They're probably going to dance over this because they don't want to tell the story. But we think it's supposed to be a doppelganger from an alternate universe, or her
Of
from the
course.
future, or her from the future. Even though Crisis established that doppelgangers can't exist on the same universe anymore. So,
There's just so many rules, and I just like could never keep them straight.
but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, anyway, in the comics, Red Death is Batman gone insane who steals the Flash's speed to kill all his bad guys. In this storyline, it seems to be that Batwoman's gone insane, stole the Flash's speed, and now wants to take out the Flash for a reason we don't quite know. But anyway, the ending of the episode revealed that the benefactor is using Wayne technology, and that's where Iris's arc comes in. She's investigating what does Wayne and Gotham City have to do with all of this. And then in the end, they reached out to Luke Fox from Team Batwoman, and he said they have their own issues at the moment because Ryan Wilder went out on patrol 3 weeks ago and never came back. And I'm like, would Team Flash not have heard that Batwoman was missing by now? Like, it's been 3 weeks, y'all. Like, of course they would have been contacted at this stage. So, and then that cut to the next scene, and we find out that the Red Death is in fact an alternate version of Batwoman. So we don't know what's going on yet, but by the sounds of things, the Red Death has kidnapped the real Batwoman to draw the Flash out. We think because the Red Death has a vendetta against the Flash that we don't quite know yet. So lots of interesting storylines, which I think is probably makes me very excited for next week's episode, because we have a Red Death 2-parter coming up, The Mask of the Red Death Part 1 and Part 2. So hopefully now if we can stick on this storyline and tell a coherent story, things are good, because I'm excited to see Javicia again. There was a lot of grit in that episode, and a lot of it had to do with that storyline. So I'm still excited for next week, even though I still feel like, again, this episode was like a season 1 episode on paper, but the execution felt far too season 8 to me, and it kind of let it down.
It did. So perhaps we'll put Keon on the shelf as well as Chalegra, since that seems to have been wrapped up.
Leave it on the shelf.
There's so much going on.
There is, but like not all of it is interesting. And I think we're also
Sounds interesting.
See, that's the point. On the paper, it sounds so good, but in execution, no, except for the Red Death plot. And I guess the Baby Moon plot, which apparently is wrapping up soon, since Barry and his lists we're nearly through it, and they were cooking in Paris, which is so nice. I did like seeing that part of West Allen's relationship. But the Flash is flashing, so we'll see how the final run goes.
We'll keep the faith.
Okay,
We'll try.
my bar might be going towards the ground, Michael. I don't know where your bar is, but my expectations, they're being managed, and they're being managed towards lower them.
I'm naively hopeful, and I will be right here to the end. It probably won't work out well for me. It never has, but we'll see.